we're not wasting time dealing with customers who are likely to never buy from us because they don't fit our ideal customer profile. So let's move those people out of our pipeline early and focus our conversations on the customers who will fill our pipeline and lead to closed deals. So again, one prompt within 30 seconds, I've now also narrowed down my key decision makers, right? So you typically sell to the CEO or founder, the CFO or COO, the IT director or manager, and the compliance officer. Fabulous. This is now getting to that. I'm going to go in and have one-on-one conversations with each of these buyer personae, right? So the next step, iterating on ChatGPT, is to create customer persona profiles for each potential buyer. And that's what we'll do next. But ChatGPT has gotten really smart in the last several months. And as soon as I finished with this prompt at the bottom, ChatGPT said, would you like a downloadable ideal customer profile template or a sample list of vertical specific targeting criteria? Fabulous. My work is done in terms of the ICP. Certainly, it's going to take some massaging. You have your experience, your expertise. So you want to go in and massage what it produces, but boy, this takes 80% of the time out of doing that work. So let me stop and ask, any questions on creating your ideal customer profile, or is this something you think you could use walking out of today's session? Again, feel free to come off of mute or, all right.
Dave, Jaco here.
Yes, Jaco.
You know, this is so valuable because whenever we go into the marketing, it is like, what is the messaging that you need to have per your target market or per your persona? And if you don't know the persona, you cannot develop the marketing messaging to really speak to them.
Exactly. And we'll continue on, and I'll get to that. How do we create that messaging as well? So customer persona. So, sorry about that. So my ChatGPT prompt next, create buying persona profiles for each of the key decisions in healthcare. I could have chosen any one of the 7 or 8 industries ChatGPT came up with, but let's focus on healthcare for purposes of this. Include their roles and responsibilities, buying characteristics, pain points, key performance indicators related to the problems I can help them solve, and the buying motivations for each one. So again, within seconds, ChatGPT comes up with profiles for every person I want to sell to. So look at the healthcare CIO, role and responsibility, oversees the entire IT strategy and infrastructure, ensures alignment between technology and organizational goals. And for me as a salesperson, number 3 is killer. Leads technology procurement and budgeting decisions. This is the person I need to speak with early on in the sales process. Their buying characteristics, they're data-driven and strategic, prefers scalable integrated solutions, evaluates vendors based on risk reduction, interoperability, and ROI. I'm already starting to think about how I need to present my solution to the CIO. And again, I know these are broad brush strokes, but I'll take 80% right than starting from zero and trying to craft this all myself, because I won't do it. I'm too busy with everything else and running my business. But a few minutes or an hour or so working in ChatGPT, this is invaluable. Pain points: pressure to modernize infrastructure securely, difficulty hiring and retaining skilled staff, legacy systems increasing vulnerability and cost. Again, gold for a salesperson. And then we get to their KPIs, and KPIs become important when we ask about the personal impact of their problems or challenges. And so just keep KPIs in mind in a few minutes when I get there. And finally, their buying motivation. The other key thing to understand is that the pain points differ by role. So if you're targeting healthcare and you're going to try to talk to the CIO, the chief information security officer, the chief operating officer, each one of them have different pain points. So again, rather than the broad marketing messaging, now I'm getting more specific to the individuals I'm going to go in and try to sell to. And selling is really about understanding their pain, i.e. their problems and challenges. And if I'm not talking to the right problems and challenges, I'm not going to be connecting or engaging with my prospect. So I'm going to take a brief moment and talk about why is pain so important. So if we look at how the brain works, the same part of the brain that controls emotions actually controls decision making. And so questions that get your prospect to describe their problems and challenges can put them into an emotional state of mind. And it's from that emotional state of mind that things like desire, greed, fear come into play to make them feel like they want to get out of the status quo. They need to make a change. They need to make a decision to move forward. And so by getting your prospect to describe their problems can actually make them relive the emotions associated with those problems. So as you're talking with them, they can be experiencing frustration or fear or concern or anxiety. And that's exactly what we want. We want them experiencing that in the pit of their stomach. So, because that's, again, when they're going to get to that point of saying, I need to make a change. It's going to be so uncomfortable that they want to learn about how you can help them. But the key to this is understanding that it's the impact of the pain on their business in terms of dollars and cents and on them personally, right? These emotions that they're feeling. If it's great enough, it will cause them to invest money, time, and effort to make a change. And that's what we're always asking our clients to do in sales and selling. The problem is many salespeople are good at asking about pain, but they rarely ask about the impact of that pain, which I admit it can be uncomfortable. But that's why, as again, we talk through how do we deal with that in sales training. It's about role play. And talking about AI enabled role play systems is going to be a game changer for sales and selling. So just to
that's the, sorry, Dave, to interrupt, but that's the head trash you were talking about.
That's right, exactly. Those niggling thoughts, ideas, our own discomfort when we're in a selling role. We've got to overcome that head trash. But also we've got to have the techniques to be able to have these conversations. So I share with you here the Sandler Pain Funnel, a simple series of questions that gets your prospect talking about their pain. When we find a pain point, we simply say, well, tell me more about that. We get them to describe it. Very simple question. Can you be more specific? Give me an example. How long has that been a problem? What have you tried to do about that? And did that work? And obviously, it didn't work. Otherwise, they wouldn't be talking to you. But these questions are the ones that salespeople are typically pretty good at. It's about what's the problem? What are you trying to accomplish and what's standing in your way? But then we get to the impact questions. What's the impact on your business? How much is this costing you in lost revenue? That's me as working with VPs or sales leaders. It's usually about revenue. But it could be if you're talking to a COO or a CIO, it could be the cost and the expense of maintaining their current systems. So that impact on their business, the dollars and cents of it is the reason to change. It's not the surface level problems. This is the core problem that they need to address. And then why change now is the question, what is the impact on you personally? And remember I was talking about KPIs? I'll tell you, if you get over your head trash and you ask this question, you'll hear amazing things like, man, Dave, I could lose my job over this. If I don't find a resolution to this, I'm probably out within the next 6 to 8 months. Or my staff is going to leave because they're all burned out. They're working 80 hours a week trying to resolve these problems, and I don't have a good answer yet, right? So if you get to that, how is this impacting you personally or your team? You'll be amazed at how, especially if you've established trust up front and an open conversational environment, how much they open up to you. And then the final question is, in terms of your other priorities, how important is it to resolve this problem? I sometimes use what we call the thermometer technique, where 0 means I'll come back in 6 months and you'll be talking about the same issues, or 10 means you've made a decision, you're moving forward, and you want to find the right vendor within the next month. And that also brings us to what we call pain trigger questions. How do we start the pain funnel conversation? And so when we're engaging with prospects for the first time, we ask pain trigger questions. And these are designed to engage prospects emotionally on their problems and challenges. So again, the ChatGPT prompt, I won't read the whole thing. Well, actually, let me explain it. At the beginning, I explained to ChatGPT what a pain trigger question is, because there's a certain format that we need it written in. And then I say, write 5 pain trigger questions I can use when selling to a healthcare CISO, right? We have that ChatGPT history up above. And then I say specifically, start each question with something like, I talk to a lot of CISOs like you, and many are frustrated about. Is that a concern for you? And again, you don't need to fill in the ... ChatGPT knows what you're talking about. So from this, ChatGPT generated 5 pain trigger questions for me. And the reason I put that adjoinder at the end of that prompt was for this reason. If I say to you, and you're responsible for security in your organization, data and network security, are you worried about how quickly you could... Sorry, my window is in the way. Are you worried about how quickly you could respond to a real incident especially if it happens after hours or impacts your customers' data? If I asked you that question, how would you feel about it? Bob Galino, maybe I'll call you out because I know you're on.
Well, from the perspective of a security person, which I am not, I would guess that it's just it's a customer satisfaction issue. It's a performance issue. There are a number of things that come into play as to how to best serve your own clients.
So, absolutely right. And let me ask you, Bob, just to compare this first one, are you worried about how quickly you could respond to a real incident, especially if it happens after hours or impacts your customers' data? Versus this question, and I would ask you, hey, Bob, many CISOs I speak with are anxious about how quickly they could respond to a real incident, especially if it happens after hours or impacts their customers' data. Is that something that worries you?
So for what I do, not particularly, but again, just from the perspective of a security officer, yes, I would say that this would be something that would worry me.
Okay. So the point that I was trying to get to, and thank you, Bob, for jumping in there. So when you ask a first person question like this, are you worried about how quickly you could respond to a real incident? People will get defensive at that, right? It's like you're accusing them of not having in place the proper security measures or the team or the staff or the trained team they need to respond.
Please subscribe to our channel. For the entire presentation and slides, visit modernideasforbusiness.com. Find out about upcoming speakers and see our library of past presentations.